Happy Saturday, everybody.
What's up?
Hey, how's everyone doing?
I'm good. I'm dropping stuff on the floor, but I'm good.
Oh, I know. I've been dropping stuff all day. I don't know what's happening. Oh, yeah. All right. So just want to go over a few things today. How's everyone doing? What happened there?
Did we lose somebody? Are you lost?
There we go. There we go. Okay, so we will have Keep It Classy join us shortly. He's on his way, probably in about 30 minutes or so. And in the meantime, let's go over what we're going to talk about today. So the LG C1 Evo is actually the G1. Is that true? So this is what we're going to ask Keep It Classy, and he will go over what he's discovered and why we've concluded that. So if you guys saw my video, it appears that the inside of the C1, well, it's very much like the G1 once you do some of the service menu switching, which I haven't done personally because I don't have the C1 Evo, nor do I plan to. It's something that people with the C1 Evo were experimenting with, and the conclusion is that, hey, it got as bright as the G1. They just have to recalibrate it to get all the colors to match. So we'll get into more detail as to how that's going, because I know that Keep It Classy has been following up with that. And then the Sony A90J HDR brightness. So I finally got the A90J, and I wanted to go with you guys and share my impressions. I am really excited about this. It's no doubt, Brandon, I know why you love this TV. I love this TV. This thing is awesome. And with that, I think we have to revisit the OLED versus QLED in 2021, because last year, the QLED were still brighter than the OLED. But I don't know. I think with the A90J, I'm using real content, right? So I'm not using the stimulus, vivid mode. I'm playing Mad Max. And so I think you guys will be quite surprised with what I'm discovering when you're using real bright content. Now, remember, Mad Max and HDR is like, what, 4,000 nits peak brightness? I mean, that's bright. And if the A90J could keep up with the QLED, that's a big if, I think we're done. I mean, what is left for the OLEDs to do? So,
hey, FOMO, I think this video is listed as unlisted on your homepage, so people can't see it. That's why I couldn't find it either. You might want to jump in there real quick and just put it public so people be seeing it, because people want to come on.
Oh, I know. No,
hey, thanks for Travis for pointing that out. I didn't even see that. Yeah,
I
saw that. Come on now. You're way more popular than having 32 people watch. So hundreds of people want to be on the stream.
Yeah, I know, right?
Here they come. Yeah, Andy, we're working on it. We're getting that getting the video listed so other people can find it, because I actually did the same thing. I was like, hey, FOMO, where'd that go?
I know. All right,
where's this video?
I know. It's like,
let me refresh it. I'll refresh it. Now it doesn't say it's unlisted anymore. That went away. So the unlisted part went away. Yeah, I think it's good.
It's good.
Hey, the good news is you had 35 people watching and already 12 of them gave you likes. So they must like you.
I love it. All right, let me make sure.
Yeah, it's popping up. I think it's coming.
It's popping up now.
Also, Super Chat is not functional. Oh, got to monetize that video too.
Yep, monetizing and up and away. I tell you, no matter how many live streams I do, there's always something going wrong.
I barely get my camera set up on time, so I know. Don't worry about it. We're all on the same page. People don't realize this. Techno Dad's like good at this. He's a DJ. He's got like 10 screens sitting there.
I think I need to do 100 of these before I'm ready.
Yeah. Right. Hey, we'll get there. We'll get there this year.
All right. Okay. All right. I think it's up now.
Yeah, it looks good. We got already 10 more people. Yeah, they're piling on now.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. All right. Let's get this done.
Refresh for Super Chat to be functional.
Refresh.
For the 35 people that are here. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean like the people that were already here. Now the people coming in will have it functional.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thank you for letting me know. Sometimes it's like, is my microphone even on? Right? It's hard to know if you're working or not until you guys let me know. So thanks a lot, everyone.
Let's see. Let's see. I'm gonna make it happen. There we go. Boom.
All right. Let's try it again. Okay. For everyone who's just joined us, let's pretend that it just started a minute ago. So this year, I think, well, we'll start with the LG C1 Evo is the G1. a lot of people on AVS forum, and I put the link in my recent video this week discussing this, but basically it appears that people who have the C1 Evo, they went to the service menu, they looked around, started turning things on, and lo and behold, their brightness very similar to what's expected of the G1. And it does appear that this may be the G1 internally. However, because LG needs to make sure all their C1s are the same, that's why they had to downgrade that panel specifically for the C1, because they're also mixing and matching the older panel. Now, the reason why the older panel cannot get to that brightness is because if they were to push the older panel that bright, who's to know what's going to happen? It's not as efficient. So it's going to release more heat, which shortens the life of your OLED. So that's why on the older panel, you can't push to that brightness. But then on the newer panel, they can't have half the C1s being dimmer than the other half, right? So they pull it all down to match the older panel. Now we jump to the Sony A90J. Finally, I got it. It's up, it's mounted, and I've been watching a lot of HDR content, fully calibrated, matching it against the Samsung QN90A. Oh, wait, got someone on here. Hey, Classy Tech, welcome. Perfect timing. How are you doing, buddy?
Good. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. So here we have Brandon B, the installer, and Classy Tech. What do you want us to call you, Classy?
Cecil or Classy, don't matter.
All right. I'll call you Classy.
Classy Cecil. I like
Classy Cecil. I like that. And welcome to Stop the Foam, everyone. So, well, since we're talking about the LG C1 Evo equals G1, it was Classy that let me know, hey, you know, AVS Forum, the people in there are discovering this stuff. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with AVS Forum, you got calibrators on there as well as enthusiasts. And among those calibrators are John Riformato and D-Nice Dwayne, both of which are very well-respected calibrators. And oftentimes they share their settings and whatnot. And within that group, you have enthusiasts who would like to be a calibrator one day or really dive into the settings. And that's what Classy does, right? He's very active on the forums, and he reached out to me and said, hey, you know, there's something happening with the C1 Evo, and it looks like you can make the Evo C1 into the G1, but since I'm not the one who's really looking into this, I'd like to hand it off to Classy. Tell us a bit about what's happening with the C1 Evo actually being the G1. I mean, is it the real deal? What's happening?
All right, so first, when I credit, he said he pronounces it Fafford, I think. It's F-A-F-R-D. He's been the main member on the forum who figured out how to decipher the code in the service menu to figure out which panel that you have. And if it's, you know, basically if the line says WBE, it's Evo. If it says WBC, it's not. And then I, Blumberg, was the first person who discovered and suggested changing the C to a G. And then TT-NUAG Mata was the first to apply it and take measurements. So just want to make sure that they get all the credit that they're due. And if you go and check out post 2601 and 2616 on AVS Forum in the C1 owners thread, that's where they have posted a lot of information about all of this. So,
okay. So if they go to the service menu, whoops, WBE means it's an Evo, right?
Yep. And then WBC means it's not.
All right. Got it. So, and this is interesting before you go any further. Were there any LG C10s that had a WBE?
The C10 service menu is way different. The codes are different. The process, like, there's no way to turn the C10 into a G1. It's
but do we know
different OS, all that stuff. So.
But can we check if it has an Evo panel? That's the question.
Yeah. Again, that's more information on there that I have not gone through yet about the C10.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about the C1 Evo. How many people have successfully done the, I'll call it an upgrade, but the service menu upgrade to make their C1 perform like the G1?
I think there's 4 people so far. So I know there's been a few 77s and 148.
Okay.
And another thing while we're on this, pretty much, I don't think anyone has seen a single 77 be proven not to be Evo. So it seems like all 77s are Evo. All 83s will be. And also, we could probably, if you want to stop using the Evo moniker, because that is confusing to some people with that being the whole ecosystem.
Sure.
It's 3S4C is the name of the panel, and 3S3C is the old panel.
All right. 3S4C.
Well, I want to give you a question, Cecil. Yeah. So without seeing mine, what do you think if I had 4 OLEDs, right? I had the A90J, A80J, G1, C1, and at an angle, the C1 is the only one that doesn't get that pink tint to it. Do you think that automatically is something that would pretty much show that it's the older panel?
All right, so every panel that's been confirmed with a spectroradiometer through the SPD that had the pink tint was Evo or 3S, 4C. There are some of those that the pink tint isn't as noticeable, so some people could have it without seeing the pink tint. But generally, if you see the pink tint, it's the 3S, 4C. Okay. I've yet to see anyone have pink tint and confirm it not to be.
Now, you mentioned something before, Classy, that's really cool or really important. If someone goes in and turns their 3S, 4C, the new panel C1, into a G1, they would have to recalibrate everything, right? I mean, it appears that there are things that are different. But assuming they do that, the people that did upgrade their C1 to a G1, did they go back and recalibrate it? Was it as accurate as they would expect it to be?
So just making the change, it does throw off the accuracy a little bit.
Okay. So but if they recalibrate it, should be okay, right?
Yeah, you can recalibrate it. And it was also suggested, like, if you're going to pay a calibrator, ask them, hey, can you check if I have the Evo panel? And if I do, can you calibrate it in C1 mode and then calibrate it in G1 mode? That way, if in the future you want an update or whatever, then you have both.
Okay. Now, this is something that we don't know for sure, but I want to warn everyone. If you guys have a LG C1 Evo /3S 4C and you're planning to do this, 2 things to keep in mind. 1, do it with a calibrator on hand because you're going to screw up whatever out-of-the-box calibration it is. It will not look good after you do it. And number 2, once you get in the service menu and start fiddling around, it may, I don't know, would it end up being, would the warranty prohibit that? If you do that, will it still be warranted, right? And that's my fear is if they go in and they do that, LG may say, hey, you screwed up the warranty. We're not going to warrant it anymore because you went to the service menu. Obviously, if you go in there and nothing goes wrong, you're okay. But if you do something that's irreversible, I don't know if calling LG is going to help. Has anyone confirmed any issues with LG warranty?
I mean, nothing confirmed yet because it's too new. But
too new.
What I would say is if you have a third-party warranty at Best Buy or whatever, you're probably fine. You can always, just like people do with aftermarket parts,
right.
Just switch it back. It's literally 2 minutes.
You know what? That's a great point, Classy. I think with the Best Buy warranty, I don't want to say you're allowed to do it, but they allow you to abuse it a bit more. For example, gaming and burn-ins. So yeah, if you have the Best Buy warranty, hey, go at it, right? What's the worst that could happen? You got a replacement and you end up with a non-LG C1 3S 4C. I think this is kind of cool, but for those of you out there thinking, hey, this is a great way to save $400 or $500, maybe, but we're not going to encourage this because moving forward, when will LG make this impossible, right? Because at some point, I am sure the LG team back in South Korea are like, what the heck are they doing? Because they have to cut this out, right? This cannot be allowed. So let us know, Classy, when they do that, because I don't have the C1 yet, so I can't say, hey, the last firmware update kind of ended the fun for everyone. Is it still possible to do it? Have you heard anything about a firmware update?
The latest firmware update that released in Korea so far, that was too soon. It doesn't affect anything. And it's also, most members are thinking that LG is really not going to care because maybe 0.1% of users might actually do it. So it is possible that they just don't care. It might be too much work for them to be worth trying to fix it.
You know what? That's another good point. How expensive would it be to put a team of engineers just to stop this from happening? Unless legal comes in and says, if you guys don't do it, we're going to have a whole bunch of returns, but maybe they'll just let the returns happen, right? It may still not be worth it. Hey, Cyber GT, thanks for the super chat. If you feeked LG C1 to G1 firmware update via USB, would you be able to update the C1 for future G1 updates? Oh, well, I think this is definitely beyond my ability to answer. I don't know. We're going to have to wait and see. What are your thoughts on that, Classy?
I think if there's an update that you want, personally, if I were one to do this, I would revert it back to C1 again. It only takes a minute. Then do your update, then try it again. But wait and see if someone else confirms if you can still do that. Let someone who has the non-Evo panel confirm that they can update and still access that setting, and then everyone else should be safe to do it.
Good deal. Thank you for that. Okay, so that is the LG C1 Evo to G1. And for those of you who just joined us, I mean, this is pretty cool. Basically, the few who have done this on AVS Forum, they've pretty much turned their LG C1 with the new panel into a G1. But again, you should have a calibrator on hand because it will screw up your color accuracy.
I was gonna say, it doesn't like send it off the charts bad. It just it comes calibrated to the set brightness that it expects, and so it throws it off a little bit. Yeah. And then also I was gonna say the 55s and 65s are pretty 50-50 mixed on if they are new panel or old panel. The 77s, like I said, so far all of them are new, and then the 83s all should be new.
Did you say do we know the 48 will all be
48 new? Waiting for confirmation, but so far there's one person confirmed with a 48 to have done it, and because as far as I know, the 48 and the 77 come off the same mother glass, so I expect most of them to be 48s, but I think there may have also been some 48s that they manufactured separate of the 77s, so still unclear on the 48s.
Cool. All right. Now, before I jump into my Sony A90J HDR first impressions with Mad Max, which is an amazingly bright HDR movie, let's answer some super chats here. CMS, thank you for the super chat. Hey, B, enjoyed the custom install video. I'm sure not all jobs are that interesting, but upload more if the customers are cool with it. Are you going to upload more install videos, Betty?
Yeah, I'm trying to do like one install a week. Actually, most of the jobs are pretty cool. I don't know which one he's talking about, but I've uploaded a few of different ones. But yeah, no, definitely. I enjoy doing those videos, and sometimes they get really cool. One of the cooler ones was the TU8000 video I did. It was a crappy, average TV or whatever, but the way that I had to route the wires were fun, so people like that video. But yeah, I sure do. Thanks, CMS, for sure, man.
And Rachel Dempster, thank you for that. My C1 came today from Robert, fully calibrated. He told me not to adjust any of the settings except LSF night and day. Can't find the night setting.
I think he means ISF.
ISF, right? Night and day, right?
Yeah, and it should be ISF dark and ISF bright.
Okay. Why don't you try that? Look at ISF dark instead of night, but why don't you, let's see.
So what are they saying? They're saying they can't adjust any of the you can adjust the settings, you just don't want to mess with the color. I mean, you can change it to peak brightness and do the if you want to do the auto, if you want to do auto contrast, you can mess around with settings. You just don't want to touch the white balance and the different calibration settings is what you want to do. You don't want to mess with that stuff.
So Rachel, hopefully this got close to answering your question, but go ahead and ask it again. We'll look for your name to see if we can give you some clarity on that. All right. And okay, so the Sony A90J HDR brightness, Mad Max. The reason why I use Mad Max is because it's graded to 4,000 nits, and that means that it's very bright. The brightest TVs will not tone map as much, and the less bright, you're going to see it being significantly dimmer. So what I want to do is share with you guys real quick this video here. 1 second. And there are 3 TVs. One of them is the A90J. One of them is the Hisense U8G, and one of them is the Samsung QN90A.
Ooh, interesting.
Try to guess which one is which. Let me see here. And
I'm gonna get the preview first. What is this one? What movie is this?
This is Mad Max.
Oh, the Mad Max part where in the storm cloud where that's going out.
Yep. Yeah, so you got awesome. 3 TVs, right? Top left-hand corner, to the right, and bottom, right? So if you can guess which is which. Now, I used a heat map. So this is the brightness taken straight off the TVs, right? So one more time. Let's check it out.
Yeah, these videos, sometimes they don't play that great, so everyone bear with us. It's like not always easy to I think I know what it is already.
There you go.
I could be wrong though. You never know.
Okay, and then we'll have a few more. Just a screen. These are just screenshots now coming up. One second here. Okay, so this is that famous guitarist with a flamethrower, right? So in this screen, you can tell that the bottom left hand is the brightest. Red is bright, yellow is second most bright, and green is the least bright. So going from green to yellow to red. This TV has the brightest specular highlight. Then comes this TV, and then this TV is close, but not quite. And it's the same TVs. I don't switch them around. So you guys can take a look at that. And one more. So in this one, this TV appears to be almost the brightest. These two are very close, right? So this one did really well, but I'd say they're all very similar. So this is one of the explosions. This guy is like flying all over the place. This is a very bright explosion. So this TV appears to be slightly brighter than these two. And then we'll do one more.
You know, what's funny too in some of these is also some of them have quicker input lag too. So when you have a splitter, you'll notice that some of them will, like I can notice sometimes like the Samsung will be half a frame or a couple frames ahead of the other ones. So the Sony always lags in that respect.
Yes.
My Sonys are always the last one to change.
Absolutely. I have to go in there and frame by frame, pull them back. You're right.
Yeah.
Okay, this TV ends up being the brightest. This one, second brightest, and this one, the least bright in this particular scene. So overall, I can safely conclude that all three TVs consistently hit the same brightness. This one, though, tends to go a little brighter more often, but not significant. Because you could see that, well, the three TVs very similar. So their darkroom performance is pretty good. So let's start guessing. We'll start with you, Cecil, Classy. Which TV do you think is which?
I'm thinking the bottom left is the A90J. That'll come into discussion later about how the brightness is working on the A80J, and probably the same with the A90J.
What about this one?
The top two, I haven't seen either of them in person, but I'm going to go with Samsung on the left and the Hisense on the right.
All right. What about you, Brandon?
I mean, I'm not sure exactly how this thing is working, but I would say the top right is the A90J, and then the bottom left is the Samsung, and the top left is the Hisense. That would just be my guess.
Okay, so you guys almost.
We both got them wrong.
No, this one is the Samsung QN90A, and how you could tell this is the A90J is it gets darker right here, right? It has deeper blacks, and of course this is the U8G. But what is amazing is look how close the U8G is to these two, and look how close this is to the OLED. This is what we're talking about, the deep blacks. But what shocked me the most is that the A90J gets as bright or brighter in some scenes, but obviously in other scenes you saw that this U8G got brighter, and that's, I think we're done as far as OLED is concerned. This tells me that in a 4000 nit content like Mad Max, with the heatsink and the A90J with its XR processor, they're able to match the QN90A. So based on my observations, I'll just tell you guys up front, these two, the QN90A rarely ever got brighter than the A90J in Mad Max. Now, the U8G, maybe 5% of the time will get brighter, but consistently, the QN90A did not get brighter than the A90J, which I'm thinking, wow, that means the A90J did it. You could officially say that an OLED in movie content, HDR, like Mad Max, 4000 nit graded, you're fine. You don't need a brighter TV for certain. Now, the question is, in a brighter room, if you want to bump it to vivid, of course, the QN90A will get brighter. But in accurate movie mode, man, I don't know. I think that's pretty great. What are your thoughts on that, where we are with OLED versus QLED now?
Well, I think if you, well, you have that up. But what I noticed on that is that it looks similar to the video that I did where the A90J, A80J, where the actual content was that where these had these orange lions and their faces were so like they were like basically was clipping my camera with orange, and I was like, wow, it was so bright in the A90J, and it looked like that one had the blackest blacks on there. That's what I thought it was. So I got those Samsungs in the Hisense wrong, but that makes sense because, like you said, the Samsung can get a little bit closer to OLED black. But the funny thing is that basically the Samsung only benefits you in the bright stuff is if it's like a bright screen, like a full bright screen. You know, if you watch like some scenes in HDR movies or games or SDR or whatever, you'll notice when it's full screen white or commercials or whatever, it's like, boom, oh, there's the LED power where it's like blowing light at you through the, you know, the actual LCD. But yeah, that's pretty much confirmed when I got it. And most of the time, the highlights on my QN90A was no better or worse than the A90J, which was like, it was a little confusing to me. That's why it made sense to me.
Yeah, that makes sense. At Classy, what are your impressions? Now, I know you have a few TVs, you've seen them. What TVs have you seen or have you had experience with that you can kind of compare with what your thoughts with the QLED versus OLED debate?
All right, so I had the 65-inch X90J right next to the 77 A80J. I mean, forward a little bit so it looked about the same size. And I know the X90J is not nearly as bright as the Samsung or the Hisense, but I will say SDR, that TV hit 785 nits. So SDR, it blows away. The OLED is for pure brightness. I mean, that's something LED is just better at. Yeah. But with HDR, it's night and day that the OLED can hit the highlights so much brighter. And I was just going to say, like, running the Spears and Munzel demo disc, like the really brighter scenes, if you're straight on with the X90J, it looks just about as good as the OLED. But as soon as you're like a foot or two to the side, it falls apart. And any of the darker scenes, it's all OLED.
You know, you bring such a great point, Classy, because I normally only watch HDR content, and I keep on forgetting about that stepchild SDR. But you're right. On QLED LCD TVs, if you need bright and you're watching SDR, OLED can't break 200 nits. I mean, that's just what it is. You're going to burn out your TV if you do that. But if you need SDR to be bright, absolutely. OLED, I don't think it's ever going to get as bright as QLED or LCD TVs in SDR mode. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, that's so coming from the X900H to the C1, SDR game mode can only get 250 nits in a 10% window because there's no peak brightness. It gets grayed out.
Right.
So if you could play outside of game mode, you can get a little bit higher, but I'm not someone who's going to do that. So that's why I switched for the A80J, because you can use peak luminance on the Sony in SDR gaming. But I have also noticed, you know, playing through a game of Fortnite, like you're just playing and all of a sudden it's like, why does it seem dimmer? And it's because the ABL kicks in. It's very subtle and slow. It's not like an immediate shift, but it's just like every 5 minutes you're like, okay, this seems a lot dimmer than it was a few minutes ago, and then it'll brighten back up and then dim back down and brighten back up and dim back down.
Right. That makes sense. And what are your preferences, Brandon, between SDR and HDR? Do you normally watch an HDR or HDR content, or do you have a lot of SDR content you watch?
I watch so most of the content that I watch is SDR because I have Spectrum app. I watch, you know, I'm not even sure. It might be 4K SDR. I'm not sure because it streams over the Spectrum app. I don't think that they're supposed to have an actual 4K Spectrum app. And to be honest, I'm not sure. So I always say like it's 1080 SDR, but it could be 4K SDR too. Anyways, so the point is that I watch a majority of my content, news, sports, and then like a lot of the movies. I have all the movie channels on that app. I got it some grandfathered into some deal for like $20. So, I mean, I got to do it. But then I also get the apps that correlate. So I get HBO Max through Spectrum. So then I can watch in HDR Dolby Vision. And then I have like Disney Plus and Netflix. So I'm like 50-50. And so, you know, I don't know what you have for questions about that. But I initially I got a little, you know, just like Cecil was speaking about, I had a KS8000. So when I'd watch SDR and that, it like, you know, just like blinds you. Right. And then, so it took me a minute to get used to the C1 or the C10 last year, living in my living room. Then we got it calibrated. It like whitened up. There were a little gray, you know, bluish whites that brightened right up. So then it made sports and all that a lot more fun to watch. But overall, because it has such good highlights, the OLEDs, I prefer the way that they look and how crisp they are. I'm okay with it. I understand that it's a little bit, darker for when you're watching your typical, sports, movies, news, all that. But you can't compete when you get the black levels of an OLED. It's just, I have to have that now that I've seen it so often,
Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
And I just wanted to clarify that with the C1, most SDR content, if you're not in game mode, is fine. I mean, it's 400 whatever nits, so that's fine. It's only in game mode, them graying out the peak brightness. Everyone keeps asking them, hey, can you fix this in an update? But it's been that way for years, so I doubt they will.
Yeah, and that's the thing is if it's 2 generations in, they haven't fixed it, that means they can't. Christopher Taylor, thanks for the super chat. This is actually a pretty good question. Forget C1 to G1. How about saving money going from a B10 to a C10? So actually, the reason why the C1 to G1 possibly works is they share the same processor, which means they share a lot of other parts. Whereas if you go from a B to a C, the B uses a different processor altogether. Normally, the prior year processor. So even if you were to try, it would probably be unlikely because you don't have the processor and likely not the unit, the power supply unit to drive it. But you know what? If someone figures it out, let us know. That's an interesting experiment. I like that. And thank you, Ultra Slim, for that super sticker. Here we go to next one up is.
And I've seen a lot of super chats, but just regular questions about gaming. And like Brandon was saying, LG or Sony, it's half gaming, go LG, less than half, go Sony. I just wanted to give my take. Yeah, I'm going to do another generalization, but obviously it's different. For me, I think if you're on Switch and PlayStation, you get the Sony. If you're on PC, you definitely get LG. And if you're on Xbox, it comes down to do you prefer graphics or smoothness? Because the LG is going to be smoother, but the Sony is going to look better. So
you bring up a good point. The PS5, although you say Sony, it's because the Sony TVs look best on the PS5 more than on the Xbox Series X. But the PS5 also looks good on the LG, right?
What I'm saying is the feature set on the PS5 matches what Sony does. And I'm sure once the PS5 has VRR, that's the same time the TVs will get them. Yeah, so I think that's a pretty safe match right there.
That's another thing that kind of bothers me. I understand when your TV can't do VRR, right? I mean, hey, you're working with MediaTek, you're working with a third-party SoC, whatever, but you're making the PS5 end-to-end. You're doing all the chips. Why can't you get VRR to work on the PS5? That is what, to me, is like, wait a minute. This is purely a gaming feature on a gaming console. That's what I don't understand. So I'm thinking maybe they're holding off on releasing the VRR until the TV is complete. But if they never fix the TV, never say never, but still, does that mean the PS5 never gets it? I just find it odd that you couldn't release the VRR on the PS5 first, right? You guys have any thoughts on the PS5 and VRR?
What is it going to come out of a chrysalis or something here? I mean, it's like these things are we're waiting for all these features on these TVs and stuff. It's ridiculous. It's kind of hilarious. I don't think I don't game hardcore enough. I mean, like I said, I kept our TVs on 4K 60 just out of lack of caring. So, but I mean, I do 4K 120 when it's a single TV, but obviously with the splitters, I can't do 2 TVs at 4K 120 and compare them, especially 4 TVs. It's not happening yet. So I have to show them in 4K 60, but yeah, that's really all I have. But I'm sure Cecil probably has more info on gaming like that.
I mean, the only thing I can say is I thought it was on one of your videos, FOMO, that Sony may be waiting for the VRR standards to change. That way they only have to do it once.
You know what? Let's talk about that. You bring up a good point. So at CES 2021, the HDMI standards, right, the actual body reached out to me, say, hey, we're having a press conference, blah, blah, blah. And I said to them, wait, I only have 3 questions. And one of those questions was, what's the holdup? Why isn't it the TV makers able, or any of the device makers able to get the standards so that they can do the right thing for things to work? Are you guys not giving them the updated standards? Because I'm hearing they're waiting for you. And HDMI 2.1, or the organization, immediately responded, no, we are done. They have everything they need. All that's left is to certify that it works. But as far as the standards are concerned, all the technical parameters are complete. And this was as of January of this year. So I'm just wondering if, I know they're not going to throw each other under the bus, because HDMI organizations are, well, we don't know what they're doing, but our side is done. So the implication here is that I think Sony is trying to work on it, but it's more on their side of the house than on the other side of the house. Because you saw LG and Xbox, right? Two completely different companies. They're getting VRR to work fine. So it's hard for Sony to continue to hold that position. By now, we're in May. Come on. HDMI organization has definitely got their standards done. That explanation could only go on for so long. Okay, Josh Nakwa, thank you for waiting. If you turn the C1 and the G1 into the G1, will it be more likely to get burn-in, since they claim the G1 is using a different tech to get brighter? So that's the whole point, Josh. This is a great question. The G1 is supposed to be using that new panel that's more efficient. That means it releases less heat for the same amount of energy used. Less heat means less burn-in, but the C1, the one with that new panel, other people call it the Evo, but the new panel C1 shares that same high efficiency panel, which means it will not have the same heat emission as if it used an older panel, right? The other ones that the other C1s have. So this is not all C1s. If you took a C1 with an older panel and tried to push it, you're absolutely right. That panel will release more heat than is expected. But if you're taking the C1 with the new panel, well, the heat emission should be the same because same efficiency. So hopefully that answers your question. Next up, Christopher Taylor, thank you for the super chat. You have a U8G. Congratulations. Movies, awesome. Gaming, not really. Yeah, I'm watching the users. They're struggling with some of the VRR and some of the picture modes. Series X 4K 120, the screen keeps dropping. Is it my T software issues, or go get the C10? So let's unpack this. It could be your TV. I played on 4K 120 on the Xbox. Dirt 5, it was fine. Never dropped. I mean, perfect, right? Although I didn't verify how well VRR was working. That could be an issue. I didn't have any drops on 4K 120. Now, so it could be your TV, but then that goes to reliability in general. If you get the C10, that's a gaming TV. You cannot compare the U8G to a dedicated LG C10. It will beat, I'd say, any TV other than another LG in terms of gaming features, and it's so well baked. This is Hisense's first TV with gaming features, specifically VRR, and many are saying it shares the same or similar MediaTek chip as the Sony. So at least they're trying, right? Sony's wanting to work this out before they release it. Hisense released it first. It's got issues, not a surprise. So yeah, I suggest if you really are taking gaming seriously and you need VRR to work perfectly, get the C10. What are your thoughts?
Do you want me to go first? So how about you? You want to go first, man?
Okay. I don't really have much to say on the U8G. I am trying to get one as soon as it's available, and then I want to get the U7G and do a side-by-side. So I can't really say anything on that. But what I can say is about the MediaTek chip. This is slightly related. I'm sure a lot of people have seen Vincent Tio's A90J review where he showed that there's posterization or banding in 4K 120 HDR. Well, I've been trying to capture that. And so, you load up a HDR game at 4K 120 on the Xbox, look at a bright sky, you see banding, turn it down to 60 hertz, you still see the same banding. You turn off HDR, the banding's gone. So it seems even at 60 hertz in 4K HDR, I'm seeing the same banding. So then I'm trying to look into it more, but it seems like it doesn't matter if it's 60 or 120. If it's HDR 4K on the A80J, I'm seeing banding in the sky the same on the X90J. And so if that's bandwidth limited due to the MediaTek chip, that's something to consider.
Excellent point.
And I was going to say, based on the what they're speaking about with this gaming stuff, I'm not a gaming expert, but I would say that typically LG C10, those kind of TVs are just really good with their gaming. So you connect anything to an LG TV and it normally runs pretty smoothly, in and out of resolutions easily. And so if you have issues and you're not happy with it, the Hisense can be a little shaky. The Hisense and the Vizios can be a bit shaky sometimes with their entire package, just because they're a bit more budget. The C10 is going to give you more consistency for sure. You know, just is what it is.
Makes sense. Thank you, John Saunders, for this question. I think it's important to revisit this. So some people believe that LG might not do anything because this is such an edge case. Not a lot of people care. It's not going to be worth the expense of going in there just to take that out. While others, myself, I think that they will do it only because it opens the risk of possibly too many returns, which ends up being expensive. But at the end of the day, it's all about economics. If it's cheaper not to do anything, they won't do anything. If it's cheaper to avoid returns, they might do something. So there's that. Now, this is a good question, so I'll share. Come in late. How can you tell if the C1 is an Evo panel or not? Well, here we have this wonderful point by.
And I forgot to say the service remote is on Amazon for $8.
Oh, the service remote is where?
On Amazon for $8, or you can get an app on your iPhone or Android.
There you go.
A lot of people prefer the remote.
Okay, so you need a remote to access the service menu, and if you access the service menu, you have to look at this code WBE. This tells you that it is the new panel or the Evo panel, but people are no longer calling it the Evo panel because it's too much confusion. Evo means that it's more than just a panel, but a whole bunch of other technologies, right? So
and there's the line for that code is called OLED cell info.
We will add that later.
Okay.
So what is it? Actually, I'll type it in right now real quick.
OLED cell info is the line where you'll see the full code. And then also at the end of the code, there's a GZ or a PJ, depending on where it's built.
Now, it's on the AVS forum site, right? If they go to that thread, we'll link that thread, and then they can follow the thread to their heart's content. Thank you, Shane, for this super chat. So how would a C1 that's upgraded to a G1 compared to A90J at 83 inches? Okay, so maybe, Shane, you don't have to do any upgrade because this is my opinion. I don't know if it's true, but because there's only one LG 83-inch, my belief is that that C1 is going to run just like a G1 because you have no way of knowing. LG wants to make sure this C1 is competitive with the A90J. It's only priced $2,000 less. That tells me that this C1 is going to perform as if it was a G1. So we'll be quite surprised, I think, at how bright it can get, but we'll see. Brandon, you're going to get the C1 83-inch, right? Or you're planning to?
I don't know, man. I'm still working on that whole decision. You got to tell me which one you want. I couldn't get a price yet on the the Z9J.
Yeah.
But he's got them. He's right. He's asking the distributor when they're going to pile those two TVs on the thing. I don't know. I mean, I have to find a buyer for one of them if I do that because I'm not keeping two 83-inch TVs. But you also made a good point too, which would be like getting like a 77-inch C1 and putting that up against an 83-inch A90J to see the size difference. But then again, we had a hard time seeing that 65-inch versus 55-inch difference in my living room because I was angled a little bit. So it's kind of hard to show that on camera all the times. I did in my TCL video. I had an 85-inch on the wall, and we walked in front with my 65-inch OLED in front of that TCL TV, and it just dwarfs it. So that's it's like double the surface area. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm interested in getting one of these two. I think that the C1 is very nice. Again, I think it might be a better idea for a lot of people to think about the 77 inches on the A80J and the C1 over getting one of these big ones for 6-inch difference and like half the price. They could save a lot of money.
Well, one thing, and I think this is a good question because near and dear to me are motion differences. What are your experiences, both of you, on any motion differences between the C1 and the A80J? I do know the C1 has definitely improved over the C10, but I don't have the C1 to compare. What are your thoughts on the motion differences if you have a chance to compare those two?
I would say the C1 definitely improved over last year, but I think they just moved up to where Sony was, and Sony's still the same. And there's been a lot of people getting confused about the 2021s. Saying that the motion's bad, and I'm pretty sure that just comes down to the Cinemotion setting because this year there's high, low, and off instead of off or on or whatever. So if that's not matched to the content you're watching, so like if I'm streaming Smallville on Hulu and it's on high, it's constant frame skips.
There
Change
you
it down
go.
to low, off, and it's perfect.
Thank you for that. That's exactly what I was going to talk about. How about you, Brandon? Did you play with and compare the motion?
Yeah, I had very little problems with motion on any. There's some info. A lot of people asking me about my video today about the A80J motion. Other YouTuber had said that wasn't good and that the C1 was much better. I disagree. I mean, I had them both looking to my liking, kind of in the middle settings. I didn't know that. I mean, I'm not as technical. I like that information, so that's great. I wanted to ask him, but I think the A80J is better in my opinion, or they're not noticeably different, but the fact that the upscaling and just the clarity and it just looks better on the A80J besides that. So for me, I didn't notice motion differences while I noticed an extremely sharp picture on the A80J where the C1 looked a little bit softer, you know? And one of the questions I was going to ask real quick, Cecil, if you have like a Apple TV 4K and it has the, frame match settings, then is that going to take care of that issue because it will help match the content, or is then the TV going to take that matched content and then screw it up again if it's on the wrong motion setting?
All right. So I can't say for sure on the Apple TV because I don't have one, never had one. However, I just bought the new one, waiting for it to get here.
Nice.
And I'm going to do a review on that against the Shield.
Perfect.
So I have the Shield Pro, and I'm going to do like work your way up from the sticks to the high-end streaming to do that kind of comparison.
That's a great video. People will love that video.
And
you have to let me know. You have to let me know for sure.
But I'll just tell you that the Shield has frame matching in beta. I have not accessed it or used it yet. And that's what I was using was the Shield when, watching Hulu, streaming Smallville and seeing the skips, switch it over and it's fine.
Yeah. And my Apple TV has really good frame. When you have the frame matching on, it's night and day. It works really well. Sorry, folks.
Right. No. This is exactly what I wanted to hear because I almost watch exclusively when I'm testing on Blu-ray HDR 4K, and my setting for the A90J right now is Cinemotion High. But as you said, Cecil, if you're watching lower bitrate content, you got to lower that down to low. And I haven't started watching low bitrate content, so that's a great suggestion for you. Those of you who do have the A80J or A90J, make sure you play with that Cinemotion low, high, off, because that does affect whether you see stutter or not. Great point.
Yeah, and Magician just said, it's more about the frame rate. So if it's a movie that's 24p high, should be good. If it's 60 hertz or 30 hertz, TV content, then low or off. But just fiddle with it. And if you see frame skipping, then it's most likely that Cinemotion is set wrong.
Yep. Agreed. Andy Kilshu, thank you. I think I've been talking to you, Andy, on and off about audio. Hey, thanks for the super chat. Ordered my 65-inch A90J and Samsung's new Q950A soundbar. All right. Thank you for all the help. With the new HDR footage you've shown, I have zero FOMO. I think you hit it out of the ballpark with the A90J. I mean, this is the first time I've seen an OLED match Samsung's flagship QLED TV with 800 dimming zones. I mean, and it's on movie mode. Everything's set to high. So on the samples you saw earlier, if you missed it, go back to the beginning. I was comparing the QN90A to the A90J. Both are set high, so I did not adjust for luminance, and that includes the U8G. All of them were set high, all dimming zones set to high, and on the A90J, peak brightness was set to high, all three in the most accurate movie mode. I was so impressed that they matched each other with Mad Max. So yeah, good job, Eddie. I agree. Great choice. Big Shark, thank you for the super chat. Do you guys think the 83-inch C1 will have the brightness of the G1 enabled for the factory since there is no G1 counterpart? I think so, but that's my opinion. What are your thoughts, guys?
You can go ahead because I got something long to say for it.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you the stupid answer then. I'll just guess, kind of like FOMO's doing. Well, you're not stupid. I'm just saying, I don't know. I mean, I think so they'd have to enable the software in a different manner, right? They'd have to have the G1 software. Basically, it would be a G1 cloaked as a C1. It wouldn't be the wall mountable, flat panel, but it would be the same software and all that. So, hey, I don't know. I'd say it's like 50-50, but let's hear a smarter answer.
Yeah, let's hear your thoughts, Classy.
So FAFRD or FAFRD on AVS, all the 83s pretty much guaranteed will have the 3S4C panel. So they're already going to have that. There's going to be no reason for them to hold anything back based on a previous older panel. And so he thinks that that means that they could finally adjust the pixel pitch. And if they do that, you can get another 5 to 10% in brightness from that alone. So it's possible the 83 C1 could end up being even brighter than any of the G1s.
Wow. Hey, I don't know. I might change my mind and get the C1 83-inch now, Brandon.
No, I'm this close. I'm thinking about it. Best Buy has it listed at 5,800 right now.
Hey,
Comes down a little bit.
Hey, this is a good question for all of us considering the 83. 77 to 83. Now let's put aside the pixel pitch and that technically it might be a better TV. Let's just talk about size. Going from a 77 to 83, are we going to experience that much more size perceptually? I have never had either sizes, so I can't say, but what do you guys think? I mean, you're paying a lot to go from 77 to 83. And I know a lot of people will be asking us this questions, and you guys will be answering it. What are your tentative answer right now? If someone were to ask you, hey, is it worth the extra $3,000 to $4,000 to go 77 to 83?
Here, why don't you go, Cecil? I'm going to do the math on it real quick. I'm going to get us the square footage here. You guys do that. I'll get the square footage.
All right, so last year I got the 85-inch X900H, then got burned on. That's a different story. Going down to 77 with the improvement in picture quality, it looks amazing. But I was watching Monster Hunter the other night on the Bravia Core app, and like it really looks amazing. But I'm missing that just a little bit more of immersion from the lower size. And I even moved, like I have a new couch that's a foot closer, so I'm only 7.5 feet away. And it didn't make up for that drop in size to me. And that's why, like, if the 83 C1 goes to 5,000, then I'm doing it.
Okay, I'm leaning towards your logic there, because even though it's not 85, the 83 over 77, and man, yeah, I still might end up with 83. Okay, did you do the math, Brandon?
You got to keep stalling, man. Give me a
okay, no problem.
I need to double check this, but pretty sure the C1 is 83.5, and the A90J is like 82.6 or 0.7 or something. So I think the C1 might actually have nearly an inch more.
Hey, that's significant. When you're that size, every inch actually has more area, right? More light will be emitted. And while we're waiting, John Saunders has a good point, and this is what you were talking about, right, Kasi? The issue with the A90 or A80, these are both the Sony OLEDs for 2021. They're struggling with 4K 120 HDR banding, but you mentioned they're struggling with 4K 60 HDR gaming banding as well. So, guys, this is not a dedicated gaming TV. I mean, you have a Switch, you don't take gaming seriously. You may not notice, but maybe you will. How noticeable is that? Actually, that's a very good question for you.
To me, banding's not a big issue personally. Okay. I don't know. It's like I just don't process it that it's there because I'm not sitting there staring at a bright sky. It's the only place I can see it. Okay. But putting the smooth gradation on medium mostly clears it up. Putting on high, you can hardly see it at all. But I think medium's a good balance. So I would just do that, and you probably won't ever be bothered by it.
All right. Let's. Oh, we just talked about this one. Yep.
That TV is so the 83-inch. If the math is right, it's like 25% larger. So that's a pretty significant difference.
That
6 inches because you're going like 5 inches by you're going like 5 inches by 5 inches. So it's like 25% more screen. That's actually pretty significant in size. And I think there's just the fact that the panels are bigger. I did the math pretty quick, but it's like 2,700 square inches versus like almost 3,600 square inches.
Okay. Now it's between the C1 and the A90J. Now you have my interest, because the A90J is 2,000 more. Now I have to think about that. Splice, thank you for the super chat. Any switches you can turn on to turn the A80J unless you have a heatsink splice, so you understand the difference between the A80J and the A90J is not software, but between the C1 with the new panel and the G1, almost everything inside is so similar as to be identical, other than maybe the ATSC tuner and audio components, right? But the actual image quality, processing and the like, it looks so similar that people have been able to do it. So, but 80J and 8090J, it's a heatsink. So why is the heatsink important? You're able to push the panel brighter, but the heatsink takes that heat away. And so that allows it to stay bright longer without burning out the OLED, basically. So yeah, you could push the A80J to as bright as the A90J because it shares the same OLED chemistry. The problem is your A80J is going to start getting burn in and have all these dimming issues, have a shorter life, right? It'll start dimming faster because it cannot release that heat. And over time, that's going to wear out your OLED chemistry. So keep that in mind. But you could always go into the service menu and find a way to push that brightness, but I wouldn't do it.
Also, I to tell you, I'm still not sold on that. That's the only thing I'm a little concerned about with the A90J. There's a heat sink on it, it's supposed to help, but that A90J, it puts off like a furnace heat, man. I mean, it's hot. It's significantly hotter than the G1, which is significantly hotter than the A80J or C1. The C1 and the A80J are cool, and that A90J is like on fire. So I don't know about that.
See, that, I mean, my PC background kicking in. That's a good thing. That means the heatsink is doing its job,
it's working,
pulling
right?
the heat away from the screen.
And you guys saw how bright it is.
Isn't it supposed to pull the heat to the back though, not the front? Shouldn't it be pulling it to the back off the?
Yeah, it should be
because the heatsink is inside the body, right? If it's like a stacked heatsink, it can only be in the middle part because the top of the panel where there is no heatsink is cooler, but the bottom is hotter. So my point is isn't the fact that you're having an OLED be so hot on the surface? Isn't that what typically would then cause the burn-in long-term?
Yeah, so
you're not wrong.
Yeah, the heat sink, the part of the screen that's near the heat sink is going to be hotter because it's still going to radiate that heat. Whereas if there's no heat sink, then it's not going to feel as hot, but it's still radiating the heat.
Right.
And it's just if you have good airflow in your room or whatever, that might help with that.
So that's, you know, we all are kind of PC building enthusiasts, right? So that brings things that you just said. Airflow is important. Number two, I wonder if tilting the TV a little bit would not maximize the area where it could flow away, right? Or attaching some PC fans to the back and just blow the hell
or even
out
just
of
like
it.
one of those window, double circle ones would be enough.
Right.
Just set it back there, blow some air around.
But maybe that's why you should get a Best Buy warranty. If it starts to dim in the 5th year, hey, I need a new A90J. It's starting to dim. Hey, Cyber GT, thank you for the super chat. Panasonic is also struggling with VRR and will it be able to release at 50%, but say will be fully fixed by updates? Okay, so Cyber GT, if they're using chips by MediaTek, I don't know that they're going to fix it. This is a MediaTek problem more than it is a Sony or a Hisense issue. MediaTek's got to work with these TV makers. It's their chip. And they can't just throw it to Panasonic. Say, hey, Panasonic, you figure it out. Here are the parameters of the chip. So if MediaTek doesn't have an out-of-the-box solution for the VRR to work, no TV maker is going to have it working. So that's something to keep in mind. If Panasonic is sharing, or if Panasonic is using the same third-party system on a chip as Sony and Hisense, the struggle will continue. Whereas LG and Samsung use their own chips that they designed in-house. So that's something to keep in mind. But of course, not all Samsungs have the same chip, but I'm talking about the flagship TVs. Do you have any thoughts on this, Cecil or Brandon?
No, I think it's just pretty much MediaTek and having to deal with that. But I did want to go back to the A80J versus A90J for a second.
Go for it.
All right, so with the A80J, I just wanted to point out that trying to take brightness measurements on it is a pain because it depends on how hot it is. So the first time I checked, my room was very cool. It was at night, air's on. I got up to 875 in an accurate mode. And then a few nights later, it's like 80 or days later, 85 degrees during the day in the room. It was only hitting 810. So that ambient temperature is affecting how much it can boost. And also how long the window, your pattern window is on the screen affects your brightness readings and all kinds of stuff. And it just really seems like you have to give the TV a break between each test, it more so than I was seeing on the C1. So it seems like that heatsink, that's what will be the differentiator between them, is allowing it to keep pushing more. And I did get up to 950 if you put everything to max on the A80J, though.
Which movie mode or which picture profile did you have it on?
Custom, but the important thing is that the colors on Expert One and all the processing stuff is turned off. And yeah,
nice. All right, thank you for that. And let's go to the next super chat here. Travis, thank you. Do you test WiSA enabled speakers? Many LG TVs are WiSA enabled. The Buchart A500 is audiophile speaker with WiSA built in. Travis, you're pushing me into an edge case here. So a couple of things I am happy that WiSA is out there, right? It makes things a lot easier. The problem is WiSA cannot exist in a vacuum. You got to have a full processor somewhere in the middle, right? Somewhere between the TV and the WiSA speakers. Is the TV properly doing lossless processing? Are they doing Atmos? Are they doing now? I believe WiSA isn't Atmos enabled yet. I know it's maybe 5.1. So you don't even have Atmos with WiSA yet. I think it's supposed to come later, but I'm going to wait a couple of years for WiSA to get more support from the processing companies. The speakers are there, so we're done. We have several speakers, right? We have Buchart, I believe Klipsch is another one, and maybe more are coming down the pipe, but I don't think that's enough. I think you need Denon and Yamaha, the one that does the processors, to do WiSA as well. You guys have any thoughts on the WiSA, the wireless speaking systems?
I don't.
All right.
I don't know. I'm not really worried about that. Hey, by the way, Magician, he checked my math, and I think we're both wrong. But I looked at the 83 versus 77. I actually was doing the carton measurements for the 83-inch, so it was off. So I redid the measurements with the actual TV, and it looks like the 77-inch is about 90% of the size of the. So you're getting about 10% more, give or take. So he 10%? Said 18, I said 30. It's about. I think I got 2,700 square inches to about 3,000 square inches. Matt can check it out for me though.
Hey, we got wisdom of the crowd here. There's enough. There are enough viewers. One of them is a mathematician who could do this in their head. So why don't you check our math? Yeah. Is the 83-inch C1 10% larger than the 77-inch C1?
Basically it's like it's about 73 inches by about 42 inches versus about 67 inches by 40 inches. So you're a few inches.
Playwars.com. I'll tell you right away.
Oh, even better. Hey, thank you, Justin, for the super chat. Looking for a 65 to 70-inch streaming cable only. $1,000, give or take 100. What's the best value? I think, okay, so we have a couple of suggestions here. For 1,000, the Hisense H9G or the TCL R635 are about 1,000 this year. Now, anything else that's 1,000 from LG, Samsung, or Sony, make sure you buy last year's model. This year's model will be way too expensive. And even if it's $1,000 for a 2021 Sony, it will not perform as well as the 2020 Sony you can get for 1,000. So right now, the Sonys for 1,000 are the X900H. I think that's great for streaming and cable. You're not gaming at all. So X900H is not bad. If the Q80T from Samsung ever drops to 1,000, that would be my first choice. I think that's about it. What are you guys' thoughts for $1,000? 65-inch, 70-inch. You're not going to get it at 1,000. A good quality TV. Any suggestions for?
Which one did you say, FOMO? Which one did you say?
I said the X900H 65-inch will be 1,000 by Prime Day. The TCL R635 and the Hisense H9G.
Hisense H9G. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I was hoping maybe the Samsung Q80T could drop to 1,100, right? But that could be a push for the Q80T.
I would say, depending on when you're looking to buy, the X90J has to get a price drop. Like, it's a great TV, but it is overpriced. So when the 95 comes out, I'm sure that's going to drop at least another $300 or so, putting it right around that 1,000 mark. And I would say it's worth it over the 900H.
And if experience is any guide, the X900H dropped to 1,000 on Black Friday last year. So the X90J. Yeah, Prime Day as well. Exactly. So hold off until
they never changed that 55-inch. Sorry.
Is that crazy? I noticed that
like
too.
900. It was like the same price almost the whole year. It was like never. It was like I was hoping that 55-inch would be like 800. You know.
Yep. Yeah, because I started with the 75 for 1,600 in October, and then I saw the Costco ad leak for 1969 on the 85, and then that's when I moved up.
That's not bad. Yeah.
No.
Hey, Crowley, thanks for the super chat and the support. You have Brandon's all-day Prime Day live chat. Yeah.
Well, it's still in the making, but we're gonna make it. We're gonna make it crazy.
We're gonna have fun, Corey.
Yeah, it'll be nuts.
We're going to try to run 24 hours bouncing around. You know, we'll have fun, Corey. Stick around.
You guys can watch me sleep. I'm kidding.
You'll probably get more views.
It's funny.
The guy who puts it on YouTube, people wake him up while he's sleeping.
I know. I saw some of those streams. They're hilarious, man.
Hey, LeJuan, thank you. LeJuan or LeJuan Hughes, thank you for the super chat. I have a 65-inch Q9FN. Great choice. Will I notice a big difference if I get A80J 77-inch? Yes, because you're going to 77-inch. The Q9FM does have pretty good blacks, but colors are off. And more importantly, you're still going to have a lot of black crushing. The Q9FN had great blacks, but they're still struggling with black crushing. That's when it started, was the Q9FN. The A80J, other than being larger, I mean, it's bright enough, I think. Probably not as bright as your Q9FN, but I think if you're watching a dark room, this is a great upgrade. What are your thoughts on Mr. Hughes' question?
I would say I have two things to say. One, if you're going to do that, just be prepared that you're going to see maybe a little bit of, you know, like Cecil was speaking, you're going to see some SDR difference. You're going to see it's not going to be LED bright, you know, so if you're watching cable and sports and things like that, the A80J isn't going to be as bright. So that may be a little bit of a, you know, some people will get a little bit like, it's not as bright as I thought. When you're watching HDR movies, though, I mean, you have Dolby Vision, you have all this other stuff where, you know, but I had the KS8000, which was a really bright TV. And so you don't notice that it's kind of like gray and not black in the detail, and, you know, and you're like, oh, it looks black to me, but it's not. And so I just think that, I think it's a fantastic upgrade. It's just to make sure you manage your expectations on SDR, like cable and all that.
Good point. Good point.
I would just add, going from even the best LEDs to OLED, your biggest advantage is your black levels are going to stay black as you go to the side.
Agreed. Yeah. And if you're watching from the side, it's 77-inch. It's definitely going to look great as an OLED, because if you try to get a 75-inch and you go to the side, it's a little bit worse because it's such a large screen. And this is something that Classy could really give attention to, because I don't have the X90J and I don't think Brandon has it, right? So Earthy Grias, thank you. Classy, thanks for giving the X90J some attention. I think it's the most underrated LED TV in 2021. So let's give it some attention. In a few words, tell us what your impressions are of the X90J. Currently 1500 to 1600. What do you think?
It is a great TV that's kind of alone at this point. I mean, the U8G is there. But other than that, what else LED wise at least has the option for Dolby Vision and is good, you know, good enough for gamers, you know, as soon as VRR ever comes out. So again, like, it's kind of in its own place right now, but I think when the 95 comes out, it's got to drop, because it's still hard to justify that price for the, you know, what you're getting out of it. And I would say maybe if you guys see it soon, if you have thoughts on the build quality to the 900H, because it seemed like the 900H had better build quality. I don't know. It didn't seem as well built. And they also, I'm pretty sure they lowered the dimming zones. I'm pretty sure the 900H had 32 and the X90J has 24. Yeah.
Wait, on the 65-inch had 32, so the 65-inch now has only 24?
That's what Arting said, and I have noticed in the blooming. That's another thing with the X90J. I don't care if high on the local dimming is technically incorrect. Anything less than high, the blooming is very noticeable.
Wow.
So,
well, that's a very good point. Thank you for that. I didn't know that. I just assumed they carried over, so they found more ways to save money.
Yeah,
Ouch.
I think they cut costs in some areas so that they could boost the brightness a little bit. And I also noticed the contrast setting out of the box was clipping colors a little bit, so you kind of have to knock that contrast setting down a little bit. Thanks
for that. All right. Ninjushin, hey, buddy. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for the super chat. 60 hertz Cinemotion does reverse the 3-2 pull down, which can cause issues if the 24 hertz frame matching is output. There you go, right? So the Apple 4K TV, if you don't have the right Cinemotion setting matched to it, frame matching is a double-edged sword. You have to know whether or not it benefits your specific TV. Everyone who has the Apple TV, you just have to play around with it and compare it. There's no way to generalize, I think. But I am glad that Apple TV and Shield are giving that option, because this just gives people more chance to fix their motion if there's a problem.
Oh, and real quick, I was watching Army of the Dead last night. If you go to 42 minutes and 20 seconds, there's this like 10-15 second long panning, and it's of shipping crates and whatever, so a lot of solid lines. It's like a torture test for motion. So I would use that for testing all your motion
those
settings.
Are fun. Yeah, those are good scenes. There's one in Ready Player One too, where he's looking at the clippings, like a newspaper clippings of the Moro or whatever, and it's like boom, 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 boom. Like it's brutal on TVs too. So similar things.
Now, the Army of the Dead, did you see it on streaming or did you see it on Blu-ray?
It's only on Netflix.
Ah, see, so that adds another layer. That's very interesting. Yeah. So Army of the Dead, is that a movie or a series?
Movie. It's Zack Snyder's new movie. Yeah, 42 minutes, 20 seconds. It's about 10 seconds long. It's really easy just to skip back and just keep messing with your settings.
I will remember that. 42 minutes and 20 seconds. I have to timestamp that. That will be my test for the Sony A90J compared to the QN90A and the U8G. Thanks. Jess Lay, thank you for the super chat. Will the Z9J be good for gaming and movies? Well, Jess, in short, the Z9J is a Sony, and right now Sony would be good for gaming if it's a PS5, right guys? But for Xbox Series X and everything else, you might want to stick with LG. Now for movies, the Z9J, we don't know because it's not out yet, no reviews. There are only guesses and expectations, but if it's similar to the Z8H last year, you're going to have lifted blacks, but it will be so bright. Color accuracy will be great. Color will be punchy. The Z8H was really reserved for bright rooms because it could cut through a bright room, but I'm excited to see what the Z9J brings. I'm considering it myself. So depending on how it does in a dark room, if it's okay, if it's at least as good as the QN90A, which is hard, I may actually consider it. So for movies, we'll see. But thank you for that. You guys have any guesses or expectations on the Z9J?
Honestly, the only thing I can say is if people are interested or concerned about the motion of OLEDs, then, that might be a good option there, obviously. But I got to go OLED on most of them. I'm going to review some more. Probably won't be able to review that TV, though.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm not going to be able to get that.
Yeah, and that TV, for people wondering, it's Sony's best TV this year based on price, right? They're like $8,000 and $10,000, and I think it's ridiculous only because it's still early in the 8K game. You really are overpaying for being one of the first. If you really want a Sony non-OLED TV, give it another year or two and see what Sony does. They may add mini LED, who knows, right? So hold off on buying the Z9J if you want to hold on to this TV for a while. All right, next. Thank you, Gabriel, for the super chat. We'll look for your question because there wasn't a question attached to that. Cal Silveira, thank you for the super chat. Big from Brazil, guys. Hey, in love with the C10 Xbox Series X combo. Absolutely. That's my top combo for 2020 and probably continuing into 2021 for $2,000. Right now, you can't do better. Do you guys think OLED will be dethroned someday? Maybe micro LED. So not for a while. Micro LED is about 10 years away from coming under $10,000. So think about that. OLED is going to be running the show at least for the next 10 years when you compare it to micro LED. The question is whether QD, quantum dot OLED, when will they come in and how much? Because the how much makes it very relevant. The way things are going, the LG C1 is going to be under $2,000 early next year. And then after that, the C2 will be definitely under $2,000, closer to MSRP. I mean, the OLED prices are dropping like crazy. So with those drops, LG is going to start adding heat sinks to their C series maybe a year or two from now because they want to maintain that price point. So OLED will continue to get brighter, maybe not get more of the color saturation, color volume because it's limited, but it's so good right now. I don't think it's going to be dethroned for a while. What do you guys think? Dethroning the OLED anytime soon by anything?
I would say I don't see it happening anytime soon, but I would like to see OLED continue to grow before it is replaced. I think if they can get the colors pushed a little bit more, if they can get the the panning stutter problems fixed, I think the brightness, we're pretty much there, at least in my opinion, when it comes to HDR, highlights, and getting around that 1,000 nits. I think because you're starting at a pure zero black, you don't have to get 2,000 nits out of an OLED because I mean that's one thing people I think forget is HDR stands for high dynamic range. So if you start at a lower point, you have a wider range, and getting that pure zero black is harder than reaching 2000 nits or 1500 nits or whatever.
Yep. You know, a great point about that, reaching 2000 nits or above, if your content doesn't ask for more than 1000 nits, it's not going to hit that anyway, right? If you're watching a movie and the movie's like, all right, the brightest will go is 800 nits. Well, doesn't matter if you get a 4000 nit TV, you're only going to hit 800 nits, right? Like the Mad Max one, it's graded to 4000, and the brightest one was the U8G. It was just barely brighter than the A90J, which is an OLED, and the QN90A, which is Samsung's brightest QLED this year. You're right, we're there. I mean, the OLEDs are bright enough for content. Now, if you're playing with vivid mode and you're playing a game mode, yes, game mode can absolutely get brighter. Whatever the gaming developer wants, right? 5000 nits. But for movies, I think we're there. It's a good point. Oh, Gabriel, thank you for the super chat. Hey, completely random, but I have a question for all three of you. I'm trying to figure out the best 2.1 HDMI 10-foot cord that actually works, that I can put in wall, tire cables that don't work. Okay, so Gabriel, I'll jump in. I have a couple of brands that I've been testing. I do like the Rui Pro, RUIPRO. It's normally in my video description. I've been testing it. They sent it to me for review. I found it to work pretty well. They have both an optical version and a non-optical. I like them because they're thin. The monoprice, I've had mixed. Some of the HDMI 2.1s actually didn't work. So that's why I haven't been recommending it recently. The shorter runs do work, like the 3 feet runs. But if you need 10 feet, that's one. Zeskit also is pretty good, but they're kind of thick. So right now, my favorite is the Rui Pro because it's thin at 10 feet. And they have the optical option that's active, and that worked well as well for me. What about you guys? Any favorite brands that you have 2.1 working for you?
Well, go ahead, Cecil. You got something in your hands there, man. Show them up.
I was going to say, Brandon, I'm sure you could answer more about in-wall because it looks like he wants in-wall.
Yeah.
But out of wall, I was going to say I have the Zeskit cables. I like them. I like the braid. And then also a workaround that's kind of annoying, but a workaround for the Sony TVs with their essentially one port because you got to use one for eARC. I got this monoprice male to female, so that way I don't wear out the ports switching from one device to another.
That's a good idea.
I plug this into each device, and then they're like $10. It's HDMI 2.1. So plug this into my Xbox, my computer, whatever, and then I don't have to be, like I said, wearing out HDMI ports, plugging it in all the time.
Okay, right there, I have to pause. That is the best suggestion I've heard in this live chat because I need to get that. Thank you so much for that, Classy. That's awesome.
Do you have any handshaking issues with that when you plug it in?
It's okay, that's perfect. Good. I got the 18-inch one monoprice. They have other sizes. I would say you could probably get away getting one like 3 foot if you can wire it right and go straight to the TV. And then that way you can, if you're wall mounted, whatever. But for my setup, it's really against the wall. So I'd rather just disconnect at the device.
Yeah. And regarding the in-wall rated, I mean, when you have power cords, they're in-wall rated because they have, or if a wiring that's got electrical current going through it is in-wall rated, it's a combination of being able to melt and like stop a fire. But if you're talking about like low voltage cords, what they're doing is they're trying to get it to, it's similar in some respects, but it's trying to just not get, tears in it. So that's why they call it a certain rating. But really any HDMI cords that they're not having voltage go through them, they're fine in wall. You can use pretty much anything in wall. But I typically go to monoprice just because of the cost and the ease of getting them. And they're pretty good with returns and everything. So, but I also have some Vivify products too. I haven't really checked them out, but I know that Technodad also had that list where he tested a bunch of them on HDMI 2.1 too. So, but yeah, I just, make sure it's got the full 48 gigabits per second. And it says that it's HDMI 2.1 and go from there. They're pretty cheap online.
Yep. Quick question, quick answer, Theodore. Thank you for the question. A80J over A9G. Now that we're into this almost 3 years later, the A80J is definitely an upgrade in my opinion. And I have the A9G. I love it. But if you're going to choose between the two, I'd go with the A80J, future proofing. And I love this comment. Capono, thank you. So he's falling in love with the C9 all over again, and that's what we've always been talking about. If you're just watching movies and you're watching streaming and you're not gaming, the C9 is such a good TV. We're talking splitting hairs right now, right, among some of the best TVs out there. But the C9 is right up there in the top 5% of the content you have. So good job. Anyone who has a C9, unless you're gaming, you need the VRR. Hold on to it. It's a great TV and still as bright as the C1. Big Shark, thank you for the super chat. How much brighter could the C1 83-inch be than the C10? 35% brighter with the G1 software, Pixel software, nits. So here's the thing, Big Shark. At 83 inches, you're comparing to a C10 77-inch. Already larger, it's going to feel bigger, right? When you have the same luminance per pixel, but larger, it's just going to be brighter to your eyes. So right there, you win. And yes, the C1 will be brighter. We talked about this earlier, and Classy was mentioning that, hey, it looks like they'll be using better, higher density pixels. It'll run brighter and most likely pushed hard like a G1. So yeah, I think it'll be brighter than the C10, but more importantly, it's 83 inches. C10 is only 77. You guys have any thoughts on, is it going to be brighter than the C10?
I mean, I think you get lost in the immersion if it's a larger screen. You know, like I was, you know, I go to a lot of people's houses, I install TVs, but I don't always get to see like the result before and after. Like sometimes the TVs are off and I just get the work done. But when I had my 55-inch go to 65-inch in my bedroom, it was more about the size difference that made it seem brighter. It's not brighter, you know, it's putting out the same amount of brightness, but it's just a larger screen, lighting up the area more, making it more, you know, fun, basically. So I don't think, I'm not sure. I'm still kind of confused about what they're asking in that. Besides that, the C1, I don't know, the G1. Oh, with the G1 software, I got you. I don't think it's going to be 30 to 35% brighter than the C10, right? I mean, we're probably talking more like 10%, 15%.
Perceptually, it might feel like 30%, but yeah.
So I was going to say it depends on what you really mean by brighter. So this was a topic that I wanted to discuss, but it'll take a while, as to why the 10% readings are kind of useless. You know, the 1%, 2%, or if we could get lower, is your specular highlights. That's what matters. And then your full field matters for seeing, you know, if you have like Fortnite, you know, really bright game, or, you know, most, you know, animated movies, if there are a lot of brightness on the screen. So those, you know, 50, 75, 100% windows, those can matter more. And with the 85-inch X900H, I mean, everyone knows it wasn't that bright of a TV, but that's because you're focused on the 10% number. If you compare the X900H to the C10 last year, as you got bigger window sizes, the 900H got brighter. So depending what you're watching, it was brighter, although the C10 was brighter with HDR highlights. So when it comes to the C1 83, could it be 30, 35% brighter? It depends on the window size. So one thing, anyone who's unlocked their C1 to a G1 is seeing the numbers pretty much match the A80J now. And the A80J really shines in those smaller windows. The 10% sucks. I almost kind of think that LG might have a way to detect this is a 10% window. Let's push it. And then that's why their 1 and 2% aren't as bright. Whereas Sony, they get brighter the smaller the window.
You know, you bring up such a good point, Classy, because Sony and LG know how hard to push their TVs. Sony does not have a G1. They have nothing in between the A90J and the A80J. So the A80J, they just push it to its limit, which is essentially pushing the C1 to a G1. Now, if Sony had an A70J, then the A70 would match the C1 in brightness, and the A80 would match the G1. But since they have nothing less than the A80, it makes complete sense they max out the A80. But LG has a problem, right? They don't have a heat sink. They have to separate the G1 from the C1 in brightness. And so, you know, that is an excellent observation in terms of brightness for those considering, gaming aside, right? If you're watching movies and you want that slight brighter punch, I can see now why Sony would choose to push the 80J all the way, just like a G1, right? There's no reason not to. So yeah, good point.
Yeah,
awesome.
The 10% on the A80J is lower than the C1, at least average from what I've been seeing. But those 1-2% numbers are over 100 nits higher.
Earthy Grius, our favorite person with a favorite name. A80J versus C1. Hey, didn't we just talk about this? 55-inch, which is best, same price now. So we always say, do you game or not? If you're like me and the focus is on streaming and watching movies, HDR content in particular, I'd go with the A80J because what did you just say? It's going to be as bright as a G1. But if you're gaming or have any serious intent on making everything work, VRR, or you need all 4 ports because you plan to upgrade and add games for the kids, then the C1 is trouble-free. All HDMI 2.1 ports will work better than any other TV, and they're the same price now. So yeah, your choice, right? What do you guys think?
Yeah, the A80J is $100 more, but it's still close enough.
Yeah.
It's 1800 and 1900, but both of them are pretty expensive for 55-inch still. I'd probably wait a little longer, but I would, it's the same as that. I think like what Cecil was just speaking to, and I noticed that the C1 is brighter in like full screen a little. It seemed to me like it was a little bit brighter in full screen and brighter areas. And then, yeah, the smaller highlights were definitely better on the A80J, but it's also a lot sharper in my opinion. It's just the C1 the C1 looked a little like more full color. It looked a little better. I don't know how to explain that in the right way, but the A80J, and it was no choice. It was not a hard choice for me to choose the A80J over because I don't game often though, as well.
So what would you choose?
But I agree.
I agree about the sharpness and the clarity. And I also think the colors, I don't know if I would say the colors are brighter, but they seem to have more depth. So I played a lot of Destiny 2. When I got the A80J, first thing I did, loaded up, and it's like, wait a minute, I've walked by this thing 1,000 times before. It never stood out like this before. And then the other night, watching, like I said, watching Monster Hunter on the A80J, this is probably like almost a downside to it, that it's so distractingly good that at different points of the movie, I'm like, how did we even get here? Because I've just been like Dory, just, oh, look at that. It's so shiny and nice looking.
Okay, so you guys...
I crashed in... Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was going to say, you guys both have mentioned this several times, and I want to kind of dive into that. You said it's sharper. It feels like it sounds like you're saying it has more resolution. The C1's a little bit softer. The other one's a little bit sharper or more detail. But this is an OLED with a similar pixel density. I'm wondering then, does this mean that the C1 processor is doing something and it's upscaling? Or I mean, why would having the same number of pixels, right? What are your thoughts on that? Because I see the same thing between the U8G and the QN90A, but we know why. The QN90 is using that extra wide sub-pixel, wide angle viewing BS that is causing it to be softer. I have an explanation for that. What is the explanation for the C1 not being as sharp as the A80J? I'm a little bit flummoxed by that.
Well, I have some footage. If you want me to upload it real quick, you can play it. But go ahead, Cecil, what are you going to say?
I was just going to say, I think the XR processor is just able to distinguish those fine lines a little bit more and just do more with them. And it's one thing on AVS forum that there's kind of like this back and forth that, people say that the LG might be more creator's intent, whereas Sony is deciding, hey, let's make this shine a little bit more or stand out a little bit more. And it's a personal preference thing. Like one thing I actually am a little bugged about with the A80J is in like just watching Smallville. That's all I've been watching lately. SDR old show. If it sees light reflecting off of actors' eyeballs, it shines that up, and it's almost a little distracting that you're just seeing this light reflecting off of their eyes, and then the A80J just does that more than the C1.
So you can check, let them guess. I mean, if they've seen my videos, they probably know, but I'll let them get you. Is it okay if I have them guess for a minute?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So here's the 4 TVs, guys. I'm going to put this footage in, but let's let it go. Yeah, just let it play for a minute. It's hard to tell the difference, but you see the TVs on the left there, FOMO, look how sharp. I mean, look at how detailed that is.
So and what TVs are these? Just generally, so we can guess. What are the 4 TVs?
It's the 4 OLEDs we're speaking about.
Okay.
A90J, A80J, C1, and G1.
Okay.
All on my wall right now.
the 2 on the left looks like it has better contrast.
Yeah, I think that's what I was going to say kind of to your point. It looks almost like the detail, like Sony, or I'm sorry, LG was trying to like remove some of the loss of detail in the shadows. I wonder if this is a result that they just kind of raised up everything a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because it looks like if you back it up like right here, in some of these, like this, this looks oversaturated, almost oversaturated on the Sony.
I saw on the Mad Max. Yes, Sony in some scenes, the red is a little bit pushed. Now they're all calibrated. In some scenes they're identical, but yeah, some scenes, there's a touch more red here, and that's the Sony XR doing its work.
Yeah, you can tell when the Sony does a little different.
But this line, you're right. The line in the bottom left-hand corner definitely had better contrast.
Move it back there. And then right here, I mean, like, look at that right there.
Yes.
There's a huge difference. So the LGs on the right are a little softer, but then when it comes to like sometimes in the SDR, it makes it look a little like smooth, like people's faces look a little bit like more colorful, smoother, like more depth to the color, like Cecil was speaking to. Where on the Sonys, it's a little more harsh, but a little bit more detail. And then depending on what you want, it kind of goes back and forth on which I preferred,
There's
it's pretty interesting.
No right answer, guys, but you see the differences. Choose your poison.
And then the top left is the A90J. The bottom left is the A80J. The top right is the G1, and the bottom right is the C1.
Even on this low bit rate stream of a stream through a 1080p conversion, you can see the contrast difference with the A80J, A90J, and that's what I saw on Mad Max as well. I see what it's doing. It's probably doing a higher contrast on a per pixel basis. So now I get it. Okay, very cool. Thanks for that.
No worries.
Travis, thank you for the super chat. Any info on the QNED 4K? I believe it's being released in June, but that's in theory. Depending on how supply and inventory and constraints are, they could push it off. But right now, expect for sometime in June for the QNED90, which is the only mini LED 4K that LG is releasing. So yeah, we'll see. And Justin, thank you for the super chat. Thanks. I will be buying a house next year. So with a 65-inch, it's temporary. Want to see what kind of face I'm working with the next year to get a good one. Yes, the 65-inch is good enough for you to tell about the technology, especially between the various OLEDs you're debating. And if you don't like it, you could try something else when you do get a larger TV. Max, thanks for the super chat. Great show. Question for everyone. Does VRR and ALLM make a difference? I have the A90J. I haven't experienced screen tearing with any systems. So the auto low latency mode just means that you don't have to do it manually. So some people find it convenient. It's fine. It's no big deal. It's the VRR. Now, personally, I've been playing stuff for 4K 120 on the Xbox Series X, and honestly, I didn't see any tearing at 4K 120. So I'm not the one to talk about it. What about you guys? Have you guys seen screen tearing on the A90J?
That's all you, Cecil.
Okay.
Yeah, go for it, buddy.
All right, so ALLM, I don't care about it. I'm always, even when it's out, I'm not going to trust it. And I'm going to check to make sure it's in game mode.
Right.
That's just me. VRR, I liked it on the C1, but I honestly have no problem. I have a video about this, setting up the Xbox with the Sony TVs. So if you have the PS5, it doesn't matter because it doesn't have VRR. If you have the Xbox, what I suggest doing, if you go into the settings on the Xbox, you set it to 120 hertz. It doesn't matter what you play, what the native frame rate or rendering frame rate is. It's going to output 120 no matter what. So you get the lower input lag of the TV being at 120, but you can still play in the higher quality, lower frame rate mode. So, like Fortnite has the toggle where you can turn on or off 120. But if you turn on 120, you lose a lot of the detail, bushes disappear and whatever. So if you just play the games at 60 or even 30, have the Xbox set to 120, then you don't really need the VRR because the Xbox isn't going to be losing that many frames when it's down that low.
Well, thank you for that. And Brandon, I think we found our gamer co-host because there's no way
man.
I would have answered that to that level of detail. Thank you, Classy. That's
I'd just
awesome.
been like, I don't care about 120. That's what I said.
I would have said 4K 120. I thought it looked fine. VRR didn't make a difference, but that's me guessing, right? But hey, that's exactly. And this is G-Tech throwing in his 5 cents about the best HDMI 2.1 suggestion. Another vote for Zeskit. I like Zeskit too. I just found them a little thick, but you got to try it out. They get better.
Grab some, man. I'm gonna grab some of those.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Definitely. All right. Let me see here. Got a couple.
There's one guy, I don't know. Do you answer? This guy Joshua Roy is asking about the 12-bit.
I answered him.
Frames per second.
A lot of people have answered him. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thanks for that, guys.
Sorry, I'm trying to get in there, but
I'm just trying to catch a super chat. I'm missing all the questions.
I know you got the super chat. You're good, man. The super chats go fast, so you got your hands full. We'll try to handle some of the other ones.
But just a short answer for him, Joshua. There are no 12-bit TVs. Like, don't worry about that right now.
Now, just so that you know, technically you're going to hear Hisense promote their dual cells 12-bit, but we know what that means. It means that their rear light panel, when combined with the front color panel, makes it quote unquote 12-bit, but I don't think it's what you expect. Okay, B Romes, thank you for the super chat. I'm driving myself bat-s crazy. I know the 75-inch X95J isn't out yet. Should I wait to see it before I pull the trigger on either the A80J or C10 77-inch? Man, okay, so the X95J, at best, it's a QLED TV, and you heard that Sony dropped the number of dimming zones on the X90J. I'm hoping they don't do that on the X95J compared to the X. Go ahead.
Just someone in the comments pointed out the Arting's review was on the 55, so it's possible the bigger size still has 32, but either way, it's not enough.
And that's a good point. So thank heavens, I'm hoping they just carried it over and added the XR processor chip, which takes us to the X95J 75-inch. No one has verified it. The rumor is it has more dimming zones, but again, we got to verify that. I will get the 65-inch 95J, and oftentimes you can extrapolate that to 95 on the 75-inch. But here's the thing you have to keep in mind. You're comparing it to the A80J or C10 77-inch. It's no comparison. We always talk about this. You cannot compare an OLED to a non-OLED because they're two different use cases. The OLED is built for dark room, deep black levels, and it's going to kill anything that's not an OLED in a dark room. In a brighter room, okay, the 95J is going to be bright. It's going to have great SDR. It's going to be brighter SDR than either the A80J or the C10. So what's your use case? If you're in a bright room, you watch a lot of SDR, you don't care about the black levels that much, X95J is going to be great. But if you're a gamer, you got to go straight to the C10 77-inch. What are your thoughts on his question?
I think he meant C10 or C1. I would just eliminate C10 in my opinion.
Yeah,
at this point, I don't. Even if it's like $800 more, I would go for the C1. That's me personally. But I was actually considering the 85 X95J because going from the 900H to the 90J, they cut out the 85, went to 100, and charged too much. So if you want 85, if you want 85, then the 95J is your only option. But just what you said, bright room, then you might want to go the 95J. Or if you watch a lot of sports or things like that, or SDR content.
And this leads us to the QN90A or wait for the X95J. Staying on the theme, I have the QN90A. I think it's awesome because it's so close to OLED, but it's compromising the specular highlights, whereas the U8G does not. Its specular highlight matches the A90J or gets brighter, and the QN90A cannot get brighter than the A90J in specular highlights. It only matches it. So the question is whether the X95J is more like the U8G or more like the QN90A. We won't know. And the dual cell is not going to be as bright as either. I can tell you that right now. There's no way it can get that bright and not just burn up your house with energy consumption. Any thoughts from you guys about the Q90A or the speculations of the X95J?
I'm not sold on the Samsung QN90A. Like, I'm still not sold on it. But the problem is the only downside of the X95J is if it only has like the 32 dimming zones, I wouldn't be stoked. If it has more dimming zones, if it's it's just like the two Sonys last year, though they're good TVs, LEDs, they're, reasonably priced TVs. When I was watching HDR movies, the dimming and like the up in the areas with the logos and stuff was just so noticeable to me. And it was kind of frustrating. I think for people that are playing like full screen games, if they're brighter games, they're not noticing that. But some of the darker games, people were also noticing that in game mode. So, I know that the Samsung works. I don't know. People have different opinions about how they work in game mode too. But if the X95J has the XR processor working similar to these OLEDs, where it's like really pushing highlights and it's a brighter TV, then it comes down to, if you want to mess around with the Samsung and get possibly a dirty screen. I know like our teens didn't have a dirty screen on theirs, but like mine was awful. So I just find that Sony typically has like cleaner screens too. So
that's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, from what I've seen, even with last year, the Sony definitely has better, panels. For me, I'm not going to even consider a Samsung because of no Dolby Vision.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to the 950H and the 95J, I think if I remember right, the 950H was 60 dimming zones. So I would expect the 95J to be 60 plus.
Yeah. Probably over 100, but
Probably.
Still, like we all say, not enough. But the Dolby Vision is a really good point. Samsung doesn't have that. If you like the Dolby Vision look, Dolby Vision gives a bit more depth and texture if it's properly graded. That's just something to keep in mind. Thanks for that. And hey, Mr. Silpe, thank you for that. Why the TrueMotion settings are disabled in every image mode on my C1? Hello from Chile. I don't understand what he means about the TrueMotion since I don't have it. Can you guys add to this?
Do you mean maybe like out of the box they're just turned off and you have to turn them on manually, or are they grayed out? Because if they're grayed out, that should only be in game mode. Although I have heard that PlayStation consoles sometimes have an issue where you have to unplug the HDMI cord, do your settings, and plug it back in. But I have not tested that. I don't have a PS5, so I can't verify it.
I think in Dolby Vision, it's also locked into TrueMotion. No, I'm sorry, not disabled. That's where it's locked into the cinematic movement. So that's not disabled, right? But were other people having issues when they were plugging in game systems, or someone was saying that they were getting locked out of some of the settings? I'm not sure about that.
That was exclusively with PlayStation consoles, which again I don't have, so I can't test. But I think what he might be saying is that they're grayed out and they're turned on. That's because of the AI genre settings. So you go down to general settings, make sure the AI genre thing is turned off. Then you can adjust your motion settings.
There you go. That's them.
And thank you for confirming this, Urfigrias. No screen tearing Series X at 120 FPS with the X90J, probably in 4K 120. Yeah, I think that may be the solution to VRR that Sony is going to run away with, because if your game is 4K 120, or if your game is running 120 frames per second and you're in the 4K 120 mode, maybe that solves it and they don't have to deal with VRR. The problem, this goes to the promises they made, though, to gamers. But it's kind of sad that Sony didn't even have to promise VRR. People could have been happy without VRR, but now that they promised it, they're going to have to find a solution. So would you guys have cared if Sony didn't say anything about VRR, but said that it's capable of 4K 120 and stopped there? Would that have made a difference for you guys?
I mean, I'll give you the short answer. I could care less. I mean, really, like, if they're gonna, I mean, it's better to say it's coming in a sense that, like, it can give you hope, but it's also been a year. It's been 13 months now. So, like, that's the downside to it. So they probably could have just said it doesn't have it on the 2020 and it would have made a lot more people be happy. But this year, if it's actually coming, man, I mean, Christmas is a long ways away yet.
It is.
Yeah. And like, I mean, even if I am playing online competitive, I really don't care personally. I know a lot of people do, and especially if you're a PC gamer, then you kind of need it. I can see complaining there, but I actually have a bigger problem with the Sonys right now. And I mean, we all know you can't do Dolby Vision 4K 120. You got to switch back and forth. But what I'm trying to figure out now is if I turn on Dolby Vision, there's no game mode in Dolby Vision. So when the Xbox actually has games playing in Dolby Vision, are they going to add a game mode to Dolby Vision? Because if not, the input lag is already bad enough when you're out of game mode, but you add in the Dolby Vision processing, your input lag's even worse. So that essentially means even at 4K 60, I wouldn't play Dolby Vision gaming on the Sonys.
So you bring up a good point. Would it add latency to the LG as well? Because Dolby Vision is frame to frame processing, right? And of course, no one has content to test. This would apply to LG, even if it does work. So people may end up turning it off because it adds latency, right?
Yeah, I think LG might be working more closely with them about making sure they can keep that input lag right.
That'll be interesting. Yeah, good point. Good point. All right, Mike, thanks for the super chat. I have a Sony 75 Z9D. Wow, good TV. What can compete now in both black levels and brightness? Well, black levels, obviously, in OLED. It's because you're not going to have blooming on OLED, even though the Z9D was one of the last great Sony master backlight series. The 7.7-inch A80J, it's in a dark room. It is so good. We all talk about how OLEDs in general. So I would not imagine why you wouldn't do it. Now, it won't get as bright if you're used to the brightness and SDR of the Z9D. A80J will not get as bright. So if you need SDR to get bright, then you might have to stick with a LCD TV. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That's the only downside, is that that's a pretty good TV. So again, it's like, you know, are you in a bright room that you're not going to notice the benefits of the A80J? Or are you going to, is it in a theater room where, and also the size isn't much difference too. So, you know, that would be an example where maybe he needs to get the 83-inch A90J.
Now you're going size, or the C1, right? Yeah.
Yeah, either one of those.
Yeah. The only thing I would add about brightness is the room that I'm in, I have 2 floor standings on each side of the TV and a ceiling light. None of them reflect off of it. So I can have it fairly bright in here. You just don't want anything directly hitting the screen of the OLED, which my window is directly across from it. So I have to keep the curtains closed.
Good point. Hey, Corey, great question. A lot of people are asking me this. Is the X91J exactly the same as 85-inch size X900H? The answer is yes. And it's the old X chip, the X1 whatever, Extreme or whatever they use. Yeah. Basically, Robert at Valve Electronics confirmed that all they did for 2021 was relabel the X900H and call it the X91J. Nothing. No feature. I don't think it has Google TV, right? It's still the same old Android. So other than possibly the OS may be upgraded, but hardware, everything else is the same. So I say go for the X900H if you're interested in 85-inch, because that is significantly cheaper right now.
It's so cheap.
Oh, I know.
$2,000 for an 85-inch TV. And Cecil, you said you got it for less than that at Costco?
Yeah, last Black Friday it was $19.69.
There you go.
Insane. That's incredible. I mean, there's nothing that can touch that for $2,000 or less. 85-inch.
And another cool thing is Costco, you know, and Sony, they worked out a deal so their extended warranties are actually directly through Sony. And that model had a 5-year Sony warranty.
There you go. There you go, guys. Good point.
Those are some of those things that you buy at Costco. You get those nice deals.
I can imagine carrying out an 85-inch though. I would take delivery, man. what kind of truck, right? Hey, Steven, thanks for the super chat. Great having a gaming expert, Classy, on this show. I agree. Thank you for coming on, Cecil. Any predictions or guesses for what the 83-inch A90J and 83-inch C1 will be at Black Friday? Okay, my guess, 83-inch A90J, maybe a couple hundred off. I don't see it going 1,000 off because it's a Master Series. Now, the C1, on the other hand, may go a lot more off on a percentage basis and the A90J. So I would say keep your eye out for the C1 to be discounted more in terms of percentage discounts than the A90J. But that's my guess. What are you guys thinking?
Go ahead, man.
All right. I'm not only thinking, but just mostly hoping that it hits $5,000 and like, or at least maybe 52 or whatever, somewhere around there within like the first 60 days, because then I want to get one. After that, I think it might bottom out around 45, considering that's what the 77G1 MSRP is. And I see when that drops, then they'll probably want to drop it down to fill that spot.
Good point.
Yeah, I know that they can. So I don't know. Obviously, the prices that you can get it from a wholesaler don't mean it's not, you know, correlate to what you can get at a store. But if they can sell it for as low as what, $4,100 for the C1 and $4,800 for the A90J, that means that, you know, there is significant markup. You know, it's funny. The A90J isn't listed as a Master Series on any site. Did you notice that? So I looked on Sony, Best Buy, all the sites. It's not actually listed as a Master Series OLED. That was weird.
Interesting.
Because I was like concerned about saying that in my video. I was like saying is the Master Series. But then I looked on everybody, like, you know, Vincent, us, everyone else I've seen has called it a Master Series. Reviews, everything.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't, yeah.
Yeah, and you're to your point, Robert Valve Electronics, he had his slideshow direct from Sony, and they called it a Master Series.
Okay,
and so he prepped with Sony before our Sony lineup review, you know, way back when a couple of months ago.
That was a good video.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so he did definitely call it a Master Series, and there's only 2 this year, A90J and the 8K series. So,
and then I'll just say for the pricing, check out Greentoe. Because you basically put in an offer and they send it out everywhere and then come back with the lowest price. And
cool.
So places like Cleveland Plasma or whatever, I think, go through them. So you can get a lower price. Your warranty is hit or miss. But I guess there's another warranty called UPSI that does burn-in coverage. That's a little bit cheaper than Best Buy. But as far as I know, they haven't been around terribly long. So, you know, who knows if they'll be around 3 years from now when you would need it.
Yeah. Something to consider, definitely. Don't go too cheap, guys. Pay a little bit more for some support from the retailer. Optimus Prime, thank you for the super chat. Cecil's take on off-angle viewing tint on these new Evo panels across LG and Sony. So is it happening across both brands? My family room seating ranges from direct to 40 to 70 degrees viewing angle. I don't think you'll have an issue as you get close to 40, but definitely 70 degrees. What do you guys think? At 70 degrees, will he see a pink tint on both the new LG panels and the Sonys? What are you guys experiencing?
So I was actually wanting to talk about this too. The difference in the green tint and the pink tint, because they're both separate issues.
Yes.
The pink tint has to do with the new 3.4 SC panel. So there's nothing you can do about that. It's going to be there. And it's like, think of like a, like a fisheye effect. So it kind of goes like this around the screen
in the ring with the Sony.
And as you move,
no worries. I didn't know that song.
The pink tint moves as your head moves. The green tint is more of just the difference in the white balance. So again, that's depending on the size. It could come from the factory with a white balance closer to the modified jet offset instead of D65, and that's what gives like a greenish bluish kind of tint that can be calibrated out. And as you're moving around and the pink shifts, that's what makes the green look like it's shifting as well. It's just really because the pink is shifting.
So the green can be calibrated out, but the pink cannot. That's part of the
side
panel.
Effect of the panel.
But only unique to the new panels, the new quote-unquote Evo panels.
And different people in different sizes, it'll affect differently.
Okay. Larger the size, the worse it is? Is that a trend?
I don't know if I would say that particularly, because the 77 C1, I noticed it a lot more than the 77 A80J.
Okay. How about
you? Go ahead and I have that on here now if you want.
Okay. Yeah. Let's do it,
you
guys.
You can look at it.
There you go.
So as you come around to the side, it might be hard to see. You might want to move that comment. I don't know if you can.
Oh, yeah.
But
there we go.
As you come around, let's see if it works. I can't remember exactly what part it is. And this is not from a video, so it's just random content. But
it's kind of blown out.
Let me see if I can come around the corner here. There we go.
That's better.
What it was.
Yeah, there we go.
So I'm going to try to, let's see. I know it worked really good in the video here. Let me see when I come around the front.
Are both of those
there you go, like right there.
I saw the green right there. Yeah.
So if you look, that top one is the G1 with the Evo panel, and the bottom one is the C1 that doesn't have the Evo panel. And so as you come out to the front, they look closer, but the G1 is a little green in general. But when you go, let's see if I can get a sharper angle. But right there, do you see how pink the top one is? And then when you come out of it, it turns completely green. So here, it's going to do it right here. As you come out, the bottom one stays the same color more or less, but the top one goes pink to green.
Now, Brandon, was this before your calibration?
This was before the calibration, yes.
And afterwards?
Yeah, I took a little pink out of both of them, but it wasn't like significant. I have another video I can show you there after post calibration, the 4-way, I have it there. It's still super pink at the angle, it's really,
that's the point.
Okay. So when you move around it, you still see the color shifting. I mean, it doesn't go all the way greenish, but I mean, saying you see different color from that angle. So in a wide room, I would absolutely say be careful getting that Evo panel, but maybe you can't. What was the question? Yeah, you can't.
The pink tint right here.
Yeah, you can't. If you the only way you'd have to 100% not get it now is if you ended up getting like an older Sony, because now even the C1s, and did you say some of the C10s even have the new panel because they're just not making the older panels anymore? Or is that not true? The C10s.
So from what I remember, what FAFRD said, there was roughly, I forget the number, but I want to say he said like 100,000 of the new panels made in 2019, something like that would have eked their way into the later C10s. But most of them were probably sold off to Sony and Panasonic, and then some held aside for the G1, and then what's left fills in the gaps for the C1 as they're getting rid of the old panels.
Makes sense. And so rest assured, Optimus, no matter what you do, this is just where the panels are going. So overall, it's a great TV, but even if you wait till next year, it doesn't mean that the pink tint will go away. I think every generation has their tinting issue. So something to think about. You can't buy your way out of it, and waiting doesn't necessarily make things better. They may introduce something else. So something to keep in mind.
And if he got the calibration from Value Electronics, he shouldn't have any green tint. And on the LGs, the 77 does target D65. So if you're worried about that, you won't have it on the 77 LGs. But the Sony, they still use their own white point regardless of the size, it seems.
Good point. Will, thank you for the super chat. Moving my 55-inch A8H to the bedroom and getting a 65-inch A80J. Should I wait till Black Friday? Of course. If that's the question, everyone should wait till Black Friday if you want to save a few $100s. Now, how much you save, we don't know, but I am certain you'll save a few hundred at least. What do you guys think? Is this the bottom of the price for A80J? Or are you guys seeing more discounts on Black Friday?
I'm sure they'll go down. I mean, it's already pretty aggressive though. So
yeah, it is.
It could just be that they're just looking at getting sales going now, and maybe they're just going to keep it that way. You know, never know. Who knows? Who knows?
With the 65, I don't know. I mean,
yeah,
I imagine it'll drop a little bit more, maybe, but I don't see the 77 dropping.
Anymore. It's so man, $1,000 off.
Brandon, look, you have an offer of a vacation. B, can I fly you to the UK to install the 83-inch A90J on a drywall? Please, I don't trust anyone.
Let's do it, Mike. It's on, man. Let me know. I got my family.
You need to bring along your camera. Yeah, bring your camera. Show us how it works. Right.
I want to get over there to play some golf over in Ireland, and there's some things I want to do. I want to see London. Let's make it happen, Mike. Hit me up on Instagram. Let's do it.
Native apps versus console apps for picture quality. Oh, wow. That's that. I was going to say go with the external, but then console apps. Okay.
Yeah.
So
that's going to be in my video.
Look, why don't you give a quick, short and dirty without giving away your video if you can?
Because I haven't started on it yet because I'm still waiting for the Apple TV to get here, but I'll have the new Apple TV 4K, the Shield Pro, a Amazon Fire 4K, and the Xbox Series X plus the built-in apps.
Okay. Generally speaking, on gaming consoles, they're not so good. Generally speaking, if they've updated that, thank heavens. If you're watching movies and stuff, it's better. It may be better to go on the native app, but the native app normally loses to dedicated external devices like the Apple 4K, NVIDIA Shield, even a Roku Ultra Stick or a Fire 4K HDR may end up being better than native apps because these TV companies, we don't know what they're doing on the native side. They're not developing it themselves. Like the worst offender is Vizio. Normally their native apps are just low bit rate, low resolution, and the sound is not lossless for sure. It's like very lossy. So, but over time it gets better. But that's been my experience with comparing streaming apps. What are you guys thinking generally? Because yeah, it's very general. Every TV brand does their native apps differently.
I'm thinking I'm gonna have to take off in a few minutes here, but Apple TV, I use Apple TV for most everything. You know, I've messed around with all the different. I haven't used the Shield as much, but you know, it's just for me, it's ease of use, and some of the features coming with them are just useful for me, and consistency as well. Like to have the same. You know, I have different kinds of TVs, so then I have problems getting what I want on content. If I use the Spectrum app, so you know, if you got to get something that has all the apps you need for one, that's important, and then it's just a matter of ease of use and quality.
Yeah, I would say if it comes to console versus the TV apps, depends on the TV, but I mean, he said he had the X90J, so if you're not having the X90J kick you out of apps, I would use that over the console.
That's an issue that always.
I know, man.
That's a problem.
All the Sonys are having problems here, man. My A90J boots me out of Netflix every 10 seconds.
Yep. I mean,
that's why I got to use the Apple TV.
Look better, but is it working is the question.
Okay. Just last call for super chats. If you haven't submitted one, don't hold it off until the next one. You know, we're going to have more of these live streams, whether it's Be the Installer hosting or myself. And also, if we don't get you, we miss you. Let us know in the comments below. And if you need to jump off, go ahead, Brandon, please. You don't have to say anything. Just disappear.
Oh, yeah, no worries.
I'll try to wrap up everything else.
Got it. Yeah, fire through. We'll get through these. No worries.
Okay, yeah. Upgrade from Z8H to Z9J. Will it be worth it? The answer is we don't know. Let's wait until the Z9J comes out. I'll tell you because I am considering that. C4 Thompson, thank you for the super chat. I have Hisense cables, but nothing long enough for my situation. Cable Matters has a built-in booster. I say, well, my experience is I really like the RUI Pro, RUI-PRO optical. It does have an active USB. I connect it to my Samsung via their USB on the TV side, but that USB active could be switched to either source or TV. So it's very flexible and it's worked well for me. So that's my experience with the longer cable as far as active optical. I think they go for between 150 and 200 depending on the length. But at this length, you're really looking at optical and more likely active. Have you guys had experience with the longer 2.1 runs, guys?
I haven't, but I think that, yeah, you got to do that because under 10 feet, you're over 10 feet, you're screwed if you don't, right? So yeah, you're going to have to pay a little bit of cash for that.
Agreed. JB, thank you for that. Hey, Classy, thanks for replying and answering my questions regarding the 77-inch A80J. You and B leaned me towards this one over LG. You guys got some converts. It's pretty dialed in now. Awesome. Thank you, Classy, for helping him out. Hey, Peyton, thank you for the super chat. Wait for 48-inch C1 on Prime Day for PS5. Well, I don't know how much cheaper it's going to be on Prime Day because 48-inch literally is what? Is it just out?
Yeah, it's out. It's available.
Popular as heck, right?
$1,500. It's not a terrible price. I mean,
not a terrible price, but
that's what the C10 was, or the C10 was all year at that price. I think it was like more. I think it was $100 more than the 55-inch, wasn't it?
Yep, definitely. So if you're price sensitive, Black Friday is still your best bet. Prime Day is normally reserved for last year's models. So if you're considering a 48-inch C10, assuming it's still around, that's one thing. So don't do Prime Day if you're thinking this year's TVs. You're not going to get a huge discount. Sunny Woo, thank you for the super chat. 16 feet sitting distance. Ooh, that's far. Should I get 83? I think you got to go with the 83 C1. At this point, it's all size. 16 feet, get the biggest TV you can, and you'll be happy. I don't think the A90J at 77-inch that far is going to be worth the premium for you. But then that's me. Oh, wait, A90J doesn't come in a 77.
Yeah, no 70. So I have to be the A80J.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Or G1 77, right? So, yeah. All right. I think we're all caught up. All right. Well, wait. Is that it?
Wait. Oh, yeah,
wait.
That's it.
All right. Okay. Well, you know what? Let's wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I held Brandon long enough.
Oh, you're good, man. It's all good. I enjoy it. No, don't worry about it. It's all good.
And I have to say, if you guys haven't met Classy Tech,
Keep it classy tech.
Keep it classy tech. What a tongue twister.
One of the best images in the business with the little top hat. I love it.
I love it. So we will.
Where are you, by the way?
Yeah, where are you?
Ohio.
Okay, I heard you say Cleveland. So are you a LeBron fan or not anymore? What's up?
Not a sports person.
Not a sports person?
Yeah.
I'm a big sports person, so I get all into that. Except for yesterday when I tried to upload part of that Warriors-Laker game, I got denied by copyright claims 4 times until I got it right. Finally, I added some commercials and was able to upload it. But do you know how annoying that is after you work 16 straight hours editing the video and then you try to upload a video and then you have to do it 4 times and re-render and upload? It's so annoying.
My C1 review got taken down 3 times for the Grand Tour, just having 20 seconds of it.
But the good thing you got
their faces or anything.
Keep it under 15 seconds. And also, if you do get a copyright claim, they pretty much all release it. They're all cool. They know it's TV reviews and they don't care. So
great.
They're awesome.
All right. Last question. No mass, because I have the U8G. Thoughts on the U8G? The U8G is an excellent TV. It comes so close to QN90A in darkroom performance, but the QN90A is much better as far as deep blacks. It does look very close to an OLED. However, the U8G gets brighter than any TV I've seen on the specular highlights. If you catch my video earlier, I'll timestamp it later, but you'll see the comparison. The U8G does definitely get brighter than the QN90A. So in a bright room, it's great. And that's it. With that, it's a wrap. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thank you, viewers. Thank you, Cecil and Brandon. Until next time, stop